Good afternoon and welcome to the Adults and Health Committee's Health Scrutiny section. A reminder for those who may not have been present, we're not quorate. Hold the line, people. The good news is we will be quorate in a very few seconds. So thank you for your forbearance. And Keith, you're online. I'm hoping you're hearing us. Wave at me if you are. Great. Do we have anyone else online? Not yet, but we might be joined by some others. So yeah, just give us, Councillor Daunton's going to walk through the door, and when she does, we'll start. Well done, Claire. We are so grateful to you. Thank you so much. And I think you might have left a meeting to be here. Well done. So, good afternoon. I can now formally open the Adults and Health Committee's Health Scrutiny session. A reminder for those that were not present this morning that we allow filming and photography. Feel free to take pictures and use social media as long as it doesn't disrupt the proceedings, but please make sure your mobile phones are turned to silent or vibrate. We are being live streamed and recording of the meeting will be available to view on the Council's website. There's no fire alarm scheduled, so if the alarm sounds, we will adjourn the meeting, leave via the side doors to my left, go down the fire escape next to the kitchen and make our way to the assembly point in the car park. Item 13 is the scrutiny of the annual health checks for people with learning disabilities. Unfortunately, we were notified late yesterday that the Integrated Care Board representative is now unable to attend. We can send questions we discussed at the scrutiny pre-meet for formal response, together with any other questions members plan to raise, or we can add this item to the 25-26 scrutiny work programme. Does any member have a preference between those two? Councillor Van de Ven.
Well, I didn't mean to speak first, but in a way, we've done some good preparation for the future committee, so we could share that with them.
And they might be slow off the mark, and so having something built up for the first one, I can see that that's a good argument. Any other views? Councillor Slatter.
Yes, I'm very sorry that the
Again, a bit closer to your mouth, please.
Yeah, so I knocked it. Yes, yeah. My main contribution was to thank the nurse, Carleen Allen, for producing such a useful document that Richenda passed on. That really answers all our questions, to my mind, in terms of what exactly goes on at a health check. We know, and I have checked, that if we do publicise them in our general stuff, so people know that they are entitled if they aren't in the system already. So those two things, as long as people can get local information, means I don't think we need to scrutinise much any further, and we could ask a little question, which is all I had, by a different means. But I am concerned that things like the detail of what questions get asked and what other things can be part of the process, like the sort of social prescribing and signposting, does get publicised locally, because the questions that are publicised so far on this are NHS protocols, and it would be good to have something from local providers that we can point our residents to, would be my own only concern. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and because we are meeting formally, it can be noted in the minutes, so that's helpful. Can I just welcome Councillor Garvey also to the meeting, and to Councillor Garvey and to Councillor Horgan, if you use your little yellow hand, if you want to raise, I will be able to see it. You're constantly on my screen, so don't hesitate to come in at any point. And I should have said earlier, and I didn't, but Councillor Costello was unwell this morning, and so we had a chat with her in the break, and she left and went home. But just to place on my record, she made quite an effort to be here, and we thank her for that, and we wish her well. Yes, Councillor Hay.
Can I just say, unfortunately, Councillor Bowden and Councillor Howard had prior commitments for meetings this afternoon, and that's why they've had to go early.
Okay, and thank you. And again, Councillor Bowden did speak to me about that and explained it was his district business. I might ask you to speak to that in a moment, Rashenda, but I've got another member. I think it was Councillor Seif who indicated.
My colleague here, Councillor Slatter, has basically made the same point that I was going to make. So,
just before I come to Rashenda on a associated point, but not this point, I think we're coming to the decision that we put this down for the first health scrutiny of the new municipal year, building on the questions and briefing that we've had. I think that's the consensus I see, and I'm seeing nods all round. No, different view from Councillor Slatter.
Not just because I won't be here, but and you can do some stuff after I've gone. I know, but we got so many other things on the list that the next council will be looking into. I think the work has been done today. I wouldn't really want much more work to be done on this particular subject personally, but I'm just.
Okay, I've heard both. So why don't we put it on the possibles list, and then the new committee can make a decision based on its own view of priorities. I think that's fair. Councillors Garvey and Horgan, are you happy with that? Yep, lovely. Thank you very much. An associated but slightly different point, Rashenda, could you speak to it? Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just going to mention that during the committee's informal pre-meet, I know they were very grateful for the information that had been provided by Speak Out Cambridgeshire. So I was going to suggest whichever format the committee chose to follow, be it questions or, as you've now decided, potentially another scrutiny session, it would be really good to ask for responses from the ICB on the points that they raised.
Again, I think that's uncontroversial. So if we just add that into the minute so it doesn't get forgotten, that would be great. No other points on item 13 then. So we move to item 14, the draft annual report. And again, Rashenda will introduce this, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As the committee knows, last year was the first time that the committee produced an annual health scrutiny report, and that went to Council in July. It was reporting back on the work of the committee during that period, and then was also placed on the meeting webpage to make it more widely available. The consensus was that the committee wanted to produce a similar report this year, so we followed very much the same format, but this is very much the committee's report to council, and again it will be taken in July, so we would very much welcome members' feedback on what has been included and anything that you would like to add or take away.
Okay, firstly, thank you for doing it, is the first thing to say. Secondly, suggestions, comments, feedback on any changes that you might want to see. Councillor Daunton.
I wonder, it's not actually specifically to the report, but when I was reading it and thinking back over those who appeared before us, and I think that I just wonder what preparation goes into preparing the people who come to appear before us, because I think some sessions have been more successful than others, and I wonder if that's because, well, I'm just asking what information they get in advance and whether that also needs to go into the report.
I think that's helpful. Rashenda could answer that briefly now, but I think the feedback that it could be described in the report and that might help us to reflect about any further improvements on that is a very reasonable point. Do you want to say something now on that, Rashenda, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think, yes, just briefly to say, I think it is very much an evolving process over the past year, and hopefully it's getting better for those people that are coming along to be scrutinised, because we obviously want to make the best use of their time as well as members' time. So I think what we're now doing is taking the feedback from the pre-scrutiny session, not providing all of the detailed questions, because obviously, you know, you want the live debate, but giving them a sense of the area where members are most interested. And I think the feedback we've had is that they find that very useful then in focusing their preparation. But
Okay, that's if I may, Chair, thank you very much. I think that's really good. I would also suggest, it's a small point, but it might make a difference, if they were to be shown an image of this room and where they would sit, the setup, so that they know exactly what to expect when they walk in. I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, I think that point speaks for itself. So what we're doing here is asking for feedback on the draft annual report. Councillor van der Ven.
Thank you. And thank you, Rashenda, for all the work in preparing it. There are three things that I'd like to suggest amplifying. One, the committee has the privilege of assigning partnership governor roles to a number of our trusts. And I think there are probably about 4 of us active. The roles are a little bit different depending on the trust and how the trust manages that role, but it holds huge potential as a liaison between our committee and the council and the trust. And I think we should express the value of those roles and encourage their continuation. And some of the trusts do not have partnership governors, I believe. I don't know that they all do. So that's something for them to think about. The liaison groups exist in terms of members assigned to them, but a few of them have not met this year, I believe. And that is down to us. It's not down to the trusts, who are very willing to meet with us. So I think, you know, we've had some particularly good liaison with, if I may say, with Cambridgeshire Community Services, with CPFT, with the East of England Ambulance Service, and possibly with NWAFT. But I think we've fallen away with a couple of them because we haven't organized them. So that's partly a note for next year, but we need to somehow reflect that in the report. Again, it's potential and it needs to be realized. And then along those lines, really helpful presentation in the report on the formal visits of our trusts to this room and our visits to them and so on. And commendation of being frank and open in some cases. But what I'd like to suggest around the CPFT visit in was it January, I think? I'd just like to say that in that case, the visit here was very well supported by a liaison group the month before and the month after, and very, very candid and helpful. And if we could find a way of expressing that in the annual report, just as we've commended another trust for their performance here. In fact, we didn't have liaison groups with that trust, but it was great when they were here. So I think we just need to recognize and thank our partners for their openness. And I wanted to be sure to get a mention for CPFT, because I don't think we quite expressed that in the annual report. Thanks.
Okay, there's a lot there, but I've now got a few hands, so I'll take the full round and then we'll try and round it up. I'm going to take Councillor Horgan next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Trust you can hear me. Good.
Yes, I should say.
Yes, thank you. I guess like many other councillors, I'm obliged on an annual basis to give a very brief report back to my council on the value of the outside bodies that I sit on. And the report that Richenda has produced has been invaluable in helping me to capture the information that I will be using in my feedback to my own council to express how good and valuable this committee and its actions and scrutiny has been over the last 12 months. So I, for one, thoroughly commend the report and the work of Richenda. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think I did see a hand over here. Was it you, Councillor Steve? It was both of you, actually, but Councillor Steve first, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've only one comment, and it may or may not be helpful. I don't know. I think it probably will be, and it's to do with what is scrutiny. Now, I cannot recall whether it was under the aegis of this committee or of general training for councillors and members, but it's probably important to say that we've all had specialist workshop or training in the scrutiny process. And that hopefully makes a difference to the way we ask our questions and what we're looking for. Clearly, they're not just probing questions, they are questions with a view to secure and probing, yes, but to achieve better outcomes both for the bodies that we're talking to and the council itself. So they're not just idle questions, they are with a purpose, and that's what the training was for. Now, you don't need to say all of that, but just to say that most members have been invited to these workshops.
Okay, that's helpful. Councillor Slatter.
Yes, following on from both colleagues. Councillor Horgan, I want to join the Richenda Greenhill Appreciation Society with a bang, please, because without her putting my dishevelled thoughts into words as well as she does, I wouldn't have made progress on the Scrutiny Committee at all. And so many thanks to you for that, Richenda, and for 4 years of explaining things twice. And in fact, Jeff has mentioned the purpose of scrutiny, and in the light of that paragraph where Richenda has indeed put our thoughts into words so well in saying health scrutiny has a strategic role, etc. Could I put in a plea for Health Watch to be a part of the scrutiny process rather than the being...
Just to interrupt you to save time, they've agreed it. I passed on your request yesterday and it's been agreed.
What, where the chairs go, you mean?
It's already agreed.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
We don't even have to put the case because the answer is already yes. And for people who aren't following that, I'll tell you afterwards. Councillor Hay.
Yeah, just a question about when we have health professionals come before us on the committee, would it not be possible to ask them for feedback afterwards on what they've taken away from the experience so that that then could be included in the report? And hopefully it would show the reason why we do scrutinise and what value is added.
That's a brilliant point, because in the quality reports, they have to put in what we think. So why shouldn't we put in what they think? And we haven't scrutinised so many people this year. We could send them an email, and if they want to comment, obviously we can't require them to, but if they want to, we could include their comments. I think that's a brilliant point. Nobody else? Let me just comment from me. First of all, I'd want to agree with Councillor Van der Ven's points. I think on the liaison groups, it's obviously a sensitive issue, and the report isn't the means to solve some of the issues about delivering that. But I think at the very least, listing all the groups and their membership would, even if they've not met, would reflect that they do exist or have existed, and enable other discussions to take place outside of the the report itself. I also want to agree with Councillor van der Ven's point that a bit more description of the visits we've done. I think it's 3, isn't it, that we've actually done now, and would be really good, and to show that aspect of our work. And the final suggestion, I'll just say to members, obviously in the forward I will be warmly thanking Rashenda, sparing her no blushes, of course, but that's something that I will probably put in the forward. You can be assured of that, and you are right to raise it. But this is a design point, not a content point. But we haven't done so many that we couldn't, at the foot of each one, do a box, a shaded box or whatever, with some of the key recommendations, so that people just reading the report quickly are focused on what the detail of what we've recommended, rather than just the description around it. So if that's possible from a design and presentation point of view, I think that could be good. Okay, we've got a number of really good suggestions here. We don't have to vote in any way on them. I'm sure they'll just be taken and responded to by Rashenda herself. So we'll take that feedback as given. So that's point 14. Point 15 is the health scrutiny work plan, which is starts on page 271. So some of this we are bestowing to our successors, but it's good if people here can use your expertise and knowledge about that. So page 271, I'm just getting to the right page myself. I'm just checking I've got the right page. Yeah. So does anyone want to make any comments or suggestions about the work plan? Keith, I think you might have a legacy hand up in case you haven't yet taken it down, so that I know when you want to speak next time. Anybody else on the draft work plan? Yes, Councillor Steve.
And I don't know whether it's a work plan item, but it's come up a couple of times in conversations. And I think Patrick is aware of this, of the concern. But this is about bringing up children with mental illness, and as their parents who have been caring for them approach their end of life or become elderly and incapable of looking after those children. I think it's a risk issue anyway, but it's also planning for it. And I wonder whether that's an item that we could be, I don't know whether it's scrutiny, but it's an item that we should be looking at, I think. And I think that in our discussions previously, Patrick has suggested it's something that is going to be looked at.
And at the end, I will ask both Patrick and Sally if they want to make any comments on additional items. It's quite, if you look on page 265, 266, there's a good summary list and the scoring that Rashenda's applied. So feel free to comment on that list. Councillor van der Ven.
Thank you. And Rashenda, I think Rashenda's done an incredible job. Obviously, listening to us in every forum, even picking things out of spokes meetings. So thank you so much. I didn't know we had so many good ideas. I would have said, had we had our scrutiny item today with the ICB, I think one of the themes that came out of our scrutiny preparation meeting was whether annual health checks are too generic, and whether, because we had talked about the appropriateness of the script and the whole format of invitations and follow-up for people with learning disability. And I think that led to us wondering about the suitability for other cohorts of people, and whether there is a refresh or whether there is an opportunity to consider any, what's the word? Tailoring, I suppose. I don't know, there may not be, but that isn't necessarily a scrutiny topic, but it's something that I thought could have come out of today, which could have informed thinking on future And also the reason why we often need general practice to carry out those health checks, because there are a lot of associated issues that come up. Thanks.
Okay, good point. Anybody else on the programme? Can you just remind me, Rashenda, do we have something timetabled for the first committee of the new municipal year?
In terms of scrutiny, Chair, you have your external trainer coming in so that you can deliver that at the earliest opportunity.
You did talk to me about this, sorry, that I'm asking you to refresh my memory, but that will be in the formal committee part, not a development session.
It will be in the afternoon of the first committee meeting, but it will be a private development session.
And it's been arranged already, yeah? Yeah, okay. Thank you for refreshing my memory. I know you spoke to me about it, but I was over the dates and timing. I just wanted to be refreshed. I hope everyone's happy with that. Yeah, lovely. Okay, so can we agree that the report, and like Councillor van der Ven has said, that's a very thorough list to take forward. So thank you very much, Rashenda, for that and the way that you've helped us compile that. We now move to item 16, which I think we can do very quickly. NHS Quality Accounts 24-25. Again, Rashenda, can you introduce this, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The practice in recent years has been to establish working groups to look at the NHS quality accounts for the larger providers in the area. That's because they do tend to arrive with quite short notice and quite tight deadlines, which don't fit in with the committee process. So the committee has established those working groups to do the detailed work, and then a statement is submitted in consultation with spokes. Obviously, the issue this year, normally we receive the accounts around the middle of April to the first week of May, which is our election period this year. So I think there is a question mark about whether members will actually have the capacity to do that this year. I think what we've suggested is that we set up the task and finish groups. And then I think we also have suggested giving the executive director delegated authority to fill any vacancies. And I think we really would just need to take members' views at that time, whether they felt they had the capacity this year to do it. Thank you, Chair.
All of that sounds sensible to me. Any thoughts from anyone? Yes, Councillor Daunton.
I think it's a really difficult job to do because you do get the information at quite short notice. And as the time has gone on, I felt more and more confident in doing it, but that's after 4 years. So in my own case, of course, with the CPFT, I now feel sort of really very familiar with it all, but it takes time to build up that knowledge. And so basically, possibly from May onwards, you'd be working with a new set of people who wouldn't have the background knowledge to be able to comment confidently, I think. I mean, for one thing, it's getting to know all the jargon which is used. So I just wonder about the value of it coming so soon, or just before the election, or so soon after a new committee is appointed, whether or not there's any opportunity to change the timetable for that, or whether it's desirable. I don't know. It's just my thoughts.
From previous years, we've not been in charge of the timetable. And so I guess we've got to be pragmatic, hope that there's some continuity in terms of the committee and the liaison groups, and just take it one by one and be pragmatic. I can't see any alternative to that. A very fair point that you've just made there, Councillor Daunton, but I don't think we've got an alternative. Councillor Slatter.
I would suggest that if we continue, I think, to have a legal obligation, perhaps, to appoint partner governors to many of our trusts. So it would appear that the trusts that have a partner governor from the county council are in a good position for that county councillor to know a bit more about what's going on, and at least to make sure that the quality accounts there are looked at. But if we have very thin lines of communication with the other trusts, which are the ones we don't have a governor at? You mentioned CCS, was it?
I'm not aware that we have a partnership governor at CCS.
Okay. In which case that might be another one we hear very much at the last minute. A county councillor is obviously an important governor to have, and for it to be recognised by the trust and the council as an important liaison in themselves, though obviously not sufficient in themselves.
I think we're partly dependent on the timetable these come in and the timetable where the new committee is appointed and positions on the committee are appointed, including external appointments. So some of that, all we can do is ask our officers to be as fleet of foot as they can within whatever circumstances they find at the time. And I think for those of us that hope to continue in this committee, you know, we would definitely offer to meet together in an informal meeting with new members and talk to them about the process if that was organised. But clearly the officers can't prejudice the appointments to the committee and so on, and so they might have to wait for a certain time. But I think, you know, there's a lot of goodwill cross-party here if you convene an informal gathering just to build on the knowledge from the past. But we have to leave it to your discretion, as I see it, on what's possible. Are people happy with that? Yes, Councillor Slatter again.
Can we authorise some way of helping the outgoing governor to feed back to the new governor? Because there will be a space in time. We've already talked about some of the exit interviews for councillors for other reasons. But I think to have complete discontinuity is not sensible. But if there just is an introduction from to the new governor with the old, I had absolutely nothing to go on when it came to taking on the responsibilities, and only understood some of it, rather late in the day. So I think to have an official understanding of, well, who was the governor before, and be told, and if they're both willing for them to get together. Is there a reason why that shouldn't happen?
Okay, so I think again we should leave that with Rashenda. It's all to do with capacity and time, I understand, but if there is the capacity to do exit interviews, we as members are offering it, and that you could interview each of the outgoing governors, and they would then get written down some of the key points that they're trying to find.
Or just tell the new one who the old one was.
Yeah, but maybe we could do a bit better than that in advance, because for the period up until the election, the existing people are the governors. And so maybe we could take advantage of that to get stuff written down. But that will be dependent on time and resources at Democratic Services. So I'm not insisting on that in any way, but if it is possible, that would be great. And if not, we can do what Councillor Slatter says. Okay, I've just noticed the liaison group members are in the report on Appendix 1, but some are missing, including the one with the ICB itself. So can I just note that? And maybe it could be a bit more prominent because I'd overlooked it, sorry. So that deals with, so we do actually formally have to agree these recommendations that we establish the task and finish groups. We agree that task and finish groups consist of liaison group members. We delegate authority to the executive director to appoint additional members. And every year we ask for volunteers. I don't think we're exclusive about that. And we delegate authority to the Democratic Services Officer to actually submit the committee's statements. And it's not a new recommendation, but in the minutes it'll say what we've said about being pragmatic, let's say, and assisting the process as best as we can. Having said that, are people happy with those recommendations? Nod at me if you are. Yeah, I'm seeing that all around the table. Anyone against? No, that's agreed. And online people, you can't vote. That I am instructed. The final item on today's agenda is the Health Scrutiny Recommendations Tracker, which is on page 301 of the report. So report pack. So if anyone wants to say anything about that. So we'll note it. I'd like to say although we've been a truncated meeting this afternoon, I would like to repeat, Keith's coming in. Councillor Horgan.
Thank you, and I will lower my hand before I speak. I was just noting from the tracker report that there are a few overdue responses from people. One was from Roland Sinker that was due last month, for example. I was just wondering whether we've sent sort of reminder emails to these people that a response is overdue.
Thank you. Good question, Rashenda.
Thank you, Councillor Horgan. That particular one, no, I haven't. I generally leave it slightly beyond the period that we've asked, but it will be it will be followed up before the next meeting. Yeah.
Just to reassure the committee, I'm very well aware that Rashenda is very efficient at chasing people appropriately, because these are busy people, but this is part of their obligation. But she treats that very seriously and does that well on our behalf. Okay, we'll note the tracker, and I'll just say, not at length, but this is the last committee meeting of the municipal year. I've already thanked members of the Adults and Health Committee, but particularly to Councillors Horgan and Garvey, and in their absence, the other members from the city and from the districts. Thank you so much for joining us. We've enjoyed your company. You've really enriched the proceedings. It's a genuine partnership between the districts and the county. We celebrate that. At a personal level, I've got to know each of you and the others well, and I've enjoyed that, and I think those bonds will be there going into the future. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to all members of the committee, and thank you once again to Rashenda, who served us brilliantly throughout the legislature on this function, and is a pleasure to work with. She's always good-humoured. She puts up with all of my deficiencies extremely patiently, and is enthusiastic and eager to do the job to a very high professional level, and I can't thank you enough for that. With that, those words, thank you to everyone for attending today. The meeting is closed.